After completing my 10th class exams in 1979, my father suggested that I go and help my father's uncle and learn astrology. Mathematics being my favorite subject, I learned the calculations. My grandfather taught me how to calculate the inclinations of each planet and how to calculate the Lagna and the meridian center MC, and he gave me some birth charts to draw. Thus, I learned how to draw the birth charts first and showed interest in predictions. So my grandfather told me some predictions, some of the tips that he usually uses for predictions, and after learning those tips, I documented some of them. I verified with my father. While my father and my grandfather have laid the foundation for me to get interested in astrology, for almost a decade or 2 decades, I didn't show any interest. Welcome to Sastry Karra's astrological series. This is a series about the US presidential elections that's going to be held in November 2020. Right now, in January 2019, the Democratic Party in the United States, party candidates are slowly coming up and declaring their intention to be the possible Democratic candidate for the presidential election. So in this series of presentations from January all the way probably till June of 2019, every candidate that they have announced their intention to be the Democratic candidate, I will take that particular candidate. If the right data, birth data information is available, reliable in Astro Data Bank, then I will pick that one and analyze that particular native's chart all the way till end of 2019, and this I will continue as long as the Democratic candidates are announcing their intention. Now that the US presidential elections for the 2020 is has just begun. The steam is just it's getting up, and people are started declaring their intention to stand as a presidential candidate in the US and the Democratic Party. What I'm trying to do is that for all of the candidates in this presentation, this is a common agenda that I'm going to have it. The first one is to introduce about the candidate. The second is when did that candidate, that's the first topic. The second topic about is what is the D1 chart, the birth chart, when did at the time of birth, the candidate's birth, what is the D1 chart, and how does that chart represent whether the candidate is capable of ruling a country or not. If the candidate is capable of ruling the country, what are the pros and cons, what are the benefic planets, what are the malefic planets, and I'll be doing a lot of analysis in chapter number 2. And in the third one is when did the candidate announce his or her intention to stand for the presidential bid. And depending upon the date and time and place of announcement, I will be analyzing the chart and then superimpose that particular chart on the candidate's natal chart, analyze it, and also superimpose that particular chart on the country's chart, United States birth chart, and analyze it, and also superimpose the chart on the current president's chart and see if that particular candidate can can defeat the current president. In the fourth chapter, which I'm going to do, is to analyze that particular candidate's 2019 analysis for the year 2019, because the elections is in November 2020, and the candidate will be chosen in June 2020. But before June 2020, in the year 2019, a lot of things can happen. So let's see, analyze this particular each candidate year 2019 and see if there is a, how would it be 2019 will be. Will the candidate be able to pick up the steam and move forward, or withdraw from his or her intention to run for the president on behalf of the Democratic Party? And in the year 2020, which I will be doing it probably next year, like in November 2019. I will be this year, sorry, this is 2019. In November or December of 2019, I will wait till the end, and then I will try to analyze in 2020. First of all, in June 2020, who would be the candidate and how would that candidate chart with respect to the present president's chart. These are, since this I'm working only for the Democratic Party in this presentation, for each and every candidate I will be having this particular agenda layout independently, so that I don't want to superimpose or confuse the viewers.
Today, we're falling backwards instead of moving forward. And the opportunities that made America the America that we love, those opportunities are reaching fewer and fewer people. Today, we're at risk of dropping that baton. And that's why we're all here this morning, because we're going to make sure that the promise of America is available to everyone in this 21st century. You see, I learned from my mother so many years ago in this community that when we want change, we don't wait for change, we work for it. When my grandmother got here almost 100 years ago, I'm sure that she never could have imagined that just 2 generations later, one of her grandsons would be serving as a member of the United States Congress, and the other would be standing with you here today to say these words: I am a candidate for President of the United States of America.
This is Julian Castro's birth natal chart according to Wikipedia, not Wikipedia, Astro Data Bank. He was born on September 16, 1994, around 2:40 p.m. in San Antonio, Texas. So when I took that particular birth details, I drew the chart. You can see what this is, how it looks like. So let's start analyzing the chart just from a in general. The Lagnadhipati. The Lagnadhipati is Jupiter. That is, and first and fourth house lord is Jupiter. Jupiter indicates that the D2 is an educated, has a respect to elders and educated people, and has a belief to go something that is good to the society, because Jupiter stands for teachers and professors and gurus. Jupiter is a guru, and here Jupiter is in the 3rd house, which in retrograde motion, but still it doesn't have any problem. So let's go and see which houses does it aspect. Being Jupiter being the Lagnadhipati, I am starting here. Jupiter aspects the 5th house, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th house. There you go. The 5th aspect of Jupiter is on Saturn. Jupiter is residing in the house owned by Saturn, and it is aspecting Saturn. So remember, there is an old saying that whenever there is any sort of a relationship between Jupiter and Saturn, disappointments and hurdles are assured. So this results that there might be some sort of a disappointments or for this particular native when it comes to Lagnadhipati itself, or the 4th house home life environment, and some sort of a hurdles when it comes to Jupiter, which is the 3rd house is siblings. And then Jupiter's 5th, 6th, 7th house aspect, the direct aspect. Jupiter's direct aspect is on Venus, which is the 6th and 11th house lord. 9th house is Dharmasthanadhipati, Dharmasthanamo, where Venus is residing. 6th and 9th house lord Venus is residing there. That's okay. And 7th, 8th, 9th. And then Jupiter's 9th aspect is on the 11th house, which is again owned by Venus. So here the most important thing that we have to keep in mind is Jupiter and Venus, the relationship between Jupiter and Venus. Jupiter's direct aspect is on Venus, and Jupiter's 9th aspect is on the house owned by Venus. So anything that happens between Jupiter and Venus, that's a period, either Jupiter Mahadasa, Venus Antaradasa, or vice versa, or transit planets, Jupiter and Venus transit planets, when they are co-joined or have some sort of a relationship between them, something unique is going to happen in this particular native's which is Lagnadhipati's Tanu-stanam, being in this particular native's life, which I don't want to jump right now, but this is what I noticed on the date of his announcement on 12th January 2019. Transit Jupiter and Transit Venus are co-joined in the 12th house, and something special happened on that day in this particular native's life. Now the second one is, the second lord is Saturn. Saturn is in the 7th house, and Saturn's direct aspect is on the 1st house. That's a mutual aspect. So Jupiter is looking at Saturn, and Saturn is looking at the house owned by Jupiter, and Jupiter is residing in the house owned by Saturn. So just like there is some sort of a relationship between Jupiter and Venus, there is also some sort of a similar relationship between Jupiter and Saturn, and that will have some impact or identifiable event in this particular native's life. On 12th January again, Transit Saturn is in 1st house, which is Sagittarius for this particular native, that is house owned by Jupiter, and Transit Saturn is having a direct aspect on natal Saturn, and that's the day when he announced his candidature to become to run for the president of United States in November 2020. Now the third important that we have to look, at least I look at it, is the 6th house. 6th house is employment conditions. Rahu is in the 12th house, having a direct aspect on the 6th house. So the employment conditions for this particular native will never be stable. So it is highly dynamic and unpredictable too at the same time. And then comes the 10th house. This is the very important thing I liked very much. 10th house is house of career, and the 10th house, the 7th and 10th house lord is Mercury. When Mercury is the 10th house lord and residing in the 10th house, indicates that the native will have some sort of a profession where communication is primary to survive in that particular native's profession. Without having proper communicational skills, it will be impossible for the native to survive in the career because of Mercury. And then comes the question is Sun. Sun is the 9th house lord residing in 10th house, co-joined with the 10th house lord. So naturally the native will have a career that has a direct relationship with the king or the government, or the native will be working as a public servant, and that public servant not just as a normal public servant, because it is the sun, a leader with that public servant will have some sort of a leadership role and responsibilities. And having said that, moon, which is your mind, the moon is co-joined with the leadership skill, sun and Mercury. So the mind is very in tandem with the skills that the native has. So because the mind is very stable and co-joined with the communication lord Mercury, the 10th house lord Mercury, and the 9th house lord Dharmasthanadhipati sun in the 10th house, naturally the mind always tends towards something that is more inclined towards dharma, as per the whatever is the norms of dharma at this particular era. And then the last one I would like to see is the action planet Mars. Mars is in the 10th house. Generally speaking, it was a little bit surprising to see this particular native becoming a politician, but generally speaking, when I see this chart, I would say this because Mars is deals with the defense and attorney, law and actions, all those type of characteristics. It would be more tempting to say that this particular native would be either a public attorney, a public prosecutor, a criminal prosecutor on behalf of the government, or work in the defense sector which deals directly with the government. Something, all those things are all the professions that are very, very close because of the Mars residing in the 10th house. The only reason why it might not have happened is because Mars do not own the 6th house. Mars owns the 5th house and not the 6th house. Because of that reason, maybe the native did not go in that side. But at the same time, Sun, as I said earlier, so the relationship between Sun and Moon is so strong that Mars couldn't do anything, and the native was forced to tempted to go more towards serving the public common man, and especially as per the dharma of this era. Let's now, having discussed the D1 chart, the Rashi chart, let's go and look at the Vimsottari Dasa right now. For this particular native, Jupiter Mahadasa started in 2009 and goes for the next 16 years, which is until 2025. So Jupiter is the Mahadasa, Jupiter is the Lagnadhipati, Jupiter is the 4th house lord, and Jupiter is in the 3rd house, retrograded, but still is in the 3rd house. So Jupiter being a benefic planet, and in general for any native, Jupiter always tends to produce positive results. And if you look at this particular native's history, according to Wikipedia, he was became a public figure, a famous public figure somewhere from 2009 onwards, all the way until 2019 current date. So that tells you that it is the Jupiter that is making this particular native become more famous. And now comes the question, is the Antardasa. Whose Antardasa is that? It's the Venus Antardasa. Like Jupiter is having a direct aspect on the 9th house Dharma-stanam, where Venus is residing. Venus is the 6th house lord, employment conditions, and also Venus is the 11th house lord, Labhasthanadhipati. So as I said earlier, because of this direct aspect, something unique will happen whenever the transit Jupiter and transit Venus co-joins or have some sort of a relationship. That means a direct aspect, and that too until 2020 April. So, and in 2019 January 6th, until that point, the Pratyantara Dasa is Rahu. Oh wow! On 6th January 2019, Jupiter Mahadasa, Venus Antaradasa, and Jupiter Pratyantara Dasa began, and that lasted all the way for almost like for 5 months. Yeah, it will last for another 5 months till May 14. And exactly on once the Jupiter Pratyantara Dasa began on 12th or 13th of January, the native has announced his intention to be the presidential candidate. So when you look at the Vimsottari Dasa, Jupiter Mahadasa, Venus Antaradasa, Jupiter Pratyantara Dasa is the primary reason for this particular native to have the intention for the declaration. And when you go and look at the transit analysis, exactly on that day, transit Jupiter and transit Venus are co-joined in Scorpio. We were checked the Vimsottari Dasa for this particular native using the Vimsottari Dasa at the time of his announcement. However, what is the Mahadasa and Antaradasa and Pratyantaradasa? Now let's go and look at the Yogini Dasa. Yogini Dasa started the Moon Yogini Dasa. Moon is in the 10th house. The 8th house Lord Moon is in the 10th house, co-joined with the 10th house Lord Mercury and the 9th house Lord Sun, Dharmasthanadhipati. So the Moon is in a very good position, and its Mahadasa started in 2018 October, and it will last for 1 year, almost 1 year. And then if you look at it, the Antaradasa is Mars. Mars is also in the 10th house, co-joined with Moon. And then comes, at the time of announcement, it was the Venus Pratyantaradasa. Venus is residing in the 9th house. The 6th and 11th house Lord Venus is residing in the 9th house, Dharmasthanadhipati, and the Dharmasthanadhipati is Sun. And remember, whenever there is any sort of a relationship between Jupiter, the Lagnadhipati, and Venus, something unique will be happening, as I said that earlier. And because natal Venus is having a direct aspect on natal Jupiter, and transit Venus and transit Jupiter are co-joined in the 12th house on that day, on that particular day. So let's go and look at on that particular day, at the time when he announced what is the Sukshmantara Dasa. The Sukshmantara Dasa is Mars. Okay, so the Antardasa is Mars, the Sukshmantara Dasa is Mars, and Moon is the Mahadasa. All of them are in the 10th house, co-joined with the 10th house Lord Mercury, and co-joined with the Sun, the leader, and Sun is the 9th house Lord, Dharmasthanadhipati, and Venus is residing in the 9th house. So no wonder how this is another reason why you can say that based upon the Yogini Dasa, that these are all the planets positions, and the Vimsottari Dasa and Yogini Dasa I have justified how they all made that particular NATO to come out and announce his intention to be the candidate for the Democratic Party president for the year 2020. After analyzing the Vimsottari Dasa and Yogini Dasa, the next one that I pick up is that Kala Chakra Dasa. Kala Chakra Dasa is basically with respect to the Moon in the D1 chart. Remember, Moon is your mind or Chandra Lagna. It is something similar to the Chandra Lagna, analyzing the chart through Chandra Lagna. And if you look at the Kala Chakra Dasa, the Mahadasa is Cancer. Cancer is the Moon. So the Moon is the Mahadasa is Cancer, and the house owned by Moon. Moon is in the 10th house, co-joined with the 10th house Lord Mercury, and the leader 9th house Lord Sun, and of course the Mars, the action and the violent planet Mars. And then it started in 2007, if I remember correctly. Yeah, this is the period when, yeah, from 2007, after 2007 only. Remember, the NATO has become a famous public figure only after 2007, because the Moon, according to Kala Chakra Dasa, the Moon is residing in the 10th house, has initiated all these things. And now coming to the point, the Antaradasa is Libra. Libra is the Antaradasa, Pushyami 3, starting in 2015 November and goes all the way till September 2019. So Libra, let's go and look at what is Libra. Libra is the 11th house. The 11th house is Libra, and the 11th house Lord is Venus. Venus is in the 9th house Dharmasthanamo, which is owned by Sun. And remember, the Venus is having a direct aspect with Lagnadhipati, Tanu-stanam, Jupiter. And as I said earlier, whenever there is any sort of a relationship between these two, something special happens in this particular NATO's life. And exactly on 12th January, Transit Venus and went and co-joined with the Transit Jupiter in Scorpio, and the NATO has announced his intention on 12th January. The very first candidate that announced the intention to become the Democratic candidate for US President elections in November 2020 is Julian Castro, and Julian Castro is currently a renowned politician in Democratic Party in United States, and using the birth details available in what you call in Astro Data Bank, I generated his natal birth chart. Before even trying to see his natal birth chart, what I'm trying to do first here is to see the date of his announcement. So let's, now that I had gone through the natal chart in detail earlier, let's see on the date of his announcement, how are the things going. First and the foremost, on the date that he announced, the Lagna is Taurus. Okay, so the Lagnadhipati is Venus, and if you look at it, Venus is in the 7th house, co-joined with the 8th house lord and the 11th house lord. So 8th house is secret affairs and secret dealings, and the 7th house, the Lagnadhipati is joined with the 8th house lord, which is not a good sign at the for the time of announcement. That was not the right time to announce based upon astrological perspective. But if you look at it, Mercury, Sun and Saturn, all the three are in the 8th house. We know Sun and Saturn are bitter enemies. Mercury is the 2nd house lord, 2nd and the 5th house lord here, and they are co-joined with the 7th, 9th and 10th house. 10th house is career. So 10th house Dharmasthanadhipati and 9th house Dharmasthanadhipati is Saturn, and so Sun and Mercury are co-joined with Dharmasthanadhipati, the Saturn, indicating that it will be a lot of hardships will be faced by the NATO because of the Dharmasthanadhipati is there in the 8th house. And when you look at the Vimsottara Dasa, the time of announcement, it is the Dharmasthanadhipati's Mahadasa, Saturn Mahadasa is running. The moon is your mind. So mind is running. Mind Mahantardasa, Venus, the Lagnadhipati Antardasa, Pratyantardasa, and Mercury, the communications Pratyantardasa, and again the Dharmasthanadhipati from Sukshmantardasa, further down is Saturn Pratyantardasa. So it does indicate that the time clearly says that it is a little bit, it's not a cakewalk for this particular in this time of announcement for this particular NATO. The very first candidate that announced the intention to become the Democratic candidate for US President elections in November 2020 is Julian Castro, and Julian Castro is currently a renowned politician in Democratic Party in United States, and using the birth details available in what you call in Astro Data Bank, I generated his natal birth chart. Before even trying to see his natal birth chart, what I'm trying to do first here is to see the date of his announcement. So let's, now that I had gone through the natal chart in detail earlier, let's see on the date of his announcement, how are the things going. First and the foremost, on the date that he announced, the Lagna is Taurus. Okay, so the Lagnadhipati is Venus, and if you look at it, Venus is in the 7th house, co-joined with the 8th house lord and the 11th house lord. So 8th house is secret affairs and secret dealings, and the 7th house, the Lagnadhipati is joined with the 8th house lord, which is not a good sign at the for the time of announcement. That was not the right time to announce based upon astrological perspective. But if you look at it, Mercury, Sun and Saturn, all the three are in the 8th house. We know Sun and Saturn are bitter enemies. Mercury is the 2nd house lord, 2nd and the 5th house lord here, and they are co-joined with the 9th and 10th house. 10th house is career, so 10th house Dharmasthanadhipati and 9th house Dharmasthanadhipati is Saturn, and so Sun and Mercury are co-joined with Dharmasthanadhipati, the Saturn, indicating that it will be a lot of hardships will be faced by the NATO because of the Dharmasthanadhipati is there in the 8th house. And when you look at the Vimsottari Dasa, the time of announcement, it is the Dharmasthanadhipati's Mahadasa, Saturn Mahadasa is running. The moon is your mind, so mind is running, mind Antardasa, Venus the Lagnadhipati Antardasa, Pratyantardasa, and Mercury the communications Pratyantardasa, and again the Dharmasthanadhipati from Sukshmantardasa further down is Saturn Pratyantardasa. So it does indicate that the time clearly says that it is a little bit it's not a cakewalk for this particular in this time of announcement for this particular NATO. The candidate announced on 12th January 2019. So let's go to Bihuru Chakra Paddhati. Using Bihuru Chakra Paddhati, let's see in January 2019 who is the cycle ruler and which house is that cycle ruler activating. If you see his chart, since 2010 the cycle ruler is Sun. Like I said earlier, since 2009, in 2009 or 2008 to end of 2008 or beginning of 2009, he became a shining star in the public and became a public famous in the public because of the Vimsottari Dasa and other planetary combinations. And from 2010 onwards, he became, because when Sun became the cycle ruler, the Dharmasthanadhipati Sun is residing in the 10th house, co-joined with the 10th house lord and moon mind. So he became more famous in the public sector and in the government, and because Sun activated that first house. If you look at the Bihuru Chakra Paddhati, between September 2010 and 2011, Sun activated the very first house, which is the career. The Dharmasthanadhipati activated career. So something great has happened in his life during that period, pertaining, which has a direct impact on his career, on Dharmasthanamo and serving the government, and of course Mercury, the 10th house lord, is always there with the Sun. Now going to 2019, the day when he announced, that is on 12th January 2019, when he announced his intention to be the presidential candidate, Sun is still the ruler. That's good. And look what it is from activating the 9th house. So Sun is activating the 9th house from Rashi Lagna, which is its own house. Residing in the 10th house, it has activated the 9th house, Dharmasthanamo, and it has activated Venus. Venus is the 6th house lord, employment conditions, and Venus is also the 11th house lord, Labhasthanamo too. So no wonder why the NATO has, the Sun has played such a vital role for the NATO to make this announcement. And also Sun activates the 9th house from its natal position, which is 7th, 8th, which is against the 6th house. So look at it. Sun is activating the 9th house from Rashi Lagna, which is its own house, where the 6th house lord Venus is residing, and the Sun is also activating the 6th house, which is owned by Venus, and Venus is in the house owned by Sun. So because of this, the NATO's intention became very strong, and Sun is the one that is highly cooperating the NATO. The only hurdle the NATO is seeing is as long as transit Sun is in co-join with Saturn, which is until this January 13th or 14th, the native might face a little bit backlash. But remember, at the time when the native announced it, transit Sun was in Rashi Sandhi. It was going away from Saturn, entering Makara or Capricorn, and that means the natives, whatever the minimal stress that the native had, will be gone within a day or two. That means either 13th, 14th or 15th of January, that might have gone. And then comes from there, from 15th January 2019 all the way till September 2019, Sun will be busy activating the 9th house from Rashi Lagna and the 6th house from Chandra Lagna, the 6th house from its natal position. So that means it's going to make this native very, very famous in the public image, so that his intention to be the presidential candidate gets amplified. Once in September 2019, once Sun activates the 10th house, that means that's where it is residing, and it activates all the way till September 2020. So Sun is activating the 10th house from Rashi Lagna, that's where it is residing. 10th house is career, it is activating the house where it is residing, and the 10th house lord Mercury is there, the moon is there, and Sun is the 9th house lord. That's amazing. And also, if you look at it, it also activates the 7th house from Rashi Lagna, which is the 10th house from natal Sun. Unfortunately, that's where Saturn is residing. Saturn is the bitter enemy for Sun. Even though the 7th house is owned, the 7th and 10th houses are owned by Mercury, and Mercury is co-joined with Sun during that 1 year period, September 2019 to September 2020, because Sun activates the 7th house where Saturn is residing. There will be a number of ups and downs for this particular challenges. I should say it has a number of challenges pertaining to career and his public image, his character. It is very difficult, and above all, since Sun is the Dharma-stanadhipati, Saturn will create situations where the Dharma-stanadhipati will be in deep trouble. That means that it will force the native to opt something that is against the Dharma, which in result will create some hurdles for this particular native. This is all the way till September 2020. That's when Sun is activating the 10th house from natal position and the 10th house from Rashi Lagna. Let's wait and see like all the way till September 2019 how things will be. I will go more in detail when I go to the transit analysis for the year 2019. This is another dasa system which is called as Sudarshana Chakra dasa, along with Vibsotari dasa, Yogini dasa, and Behuru Chakra Padati, after all the three, and Kala Chakra dasa and Dasapati, Antar Dasapati dasa system. These are the four. After I complete all of those analysis, this is the last one that I do, is Sudarshana Chakra dasa. In Sudarshana Chakra dasa, depending when the time of birth is precise, then it is very easy to calculate the Sudarshana Chakra dasa, and I calculated for this native and found out that according to the Sudarshana Chakra dasa, the fourth cycle is running for this particular native, and the fourth cycle started in July 2010. Remember, when you look at the previous analysis that I did, it in end of 2008 or beginning of 2009 is when he started coming to the light in the public, and as a famous person or a known person, recognizable person. Now, according to Sudarshana Chakra dasa, it proves one more time that from 2010 onwards, he became a public figure. Even the Sudarshana Chakra dasa is supporting it, and it tells you that that public figure will be there all the way till 2022. So let's go and see in detail This is the Sudarshana Chakra Dasa at the high level. Let's go and see in detail what does this Sudarshana Chakra Dasa tells for the year 2019. Wow, wow, wow. According to Sudarshana Chakra Dasa, when I go in detail, look at it. From July 2018 all the way till July 2019, the ninth house is the Mahadasa is the ninth house. Ninth house is Dharmasthanamo, and the Lord of the ninth house is Sun. Gosh, no wonder why in that 1 year, 2018 to 2019, he had been more famous in the public figure. And now let's go and see the second house. At the time of announcement, it was the second house was active. Antardasa. Second house is Antardasa. So let's go and see what is the second house Antardasa. If you remember correctly, from 13th or 14th of January 2019, Sun enters Makara or Capricorn, that which is the second house. So while the ninth house Lord Mahadasa is running, which is Sun, the transit Sun is in the second house. So that's the reason why, so according to the Sudarshan Chakra Dasa, the Sun has helped the Netu so much to move forward and announce his candidature for the possible US president in the year November 2020. Now let's go and see at the time of election, that is November 2020, what is going to happen. According to Sudarshan Chakra Dasa, it's the 11th house Mahadasa is running. So the 11th house Lord is Venus. 6th and 11th house Lord is Venus. Where is Venus? Natal Venus is in the 9th house Dharmasthanamo. Natal Venus is in the Dharmasthanamo. So naturally, the Lord has to protect the Dharma, because Venus being a benefic planet here, and unfortunately Saturn's third aspect is on Venus. So it will become that Saturn will provide so many situations, Saturn will create so many situations for this particular Netu and tempting the Netu to go against Dharma. So we have to see how the Netu handles this situation and what exactly is going to happen. How will he supersede Saturn's hurdles and protect the Dharma? That's what we have to see during this period. And then at the time of election, at the time of election, it's again the second house is the Antardasa, second house Lord is Saturn. Second house Lord is Saturn, so it's a challenge for this particular Netu. It is not at all a cakewalk. Not at all a cakewalk, and if he becomes the candidate, this Saturn is not going to keep quiet. This Saturn will not keep quiet, because at the time of the elections, that particular transit Saturn will still be in the first house looking at the natal Saturn, and the transit Rahu will be co-joining with the natal Saturn at the time of elections, that is November 2020. So this Saturn and transit Rahu will not keep quiet. They will create so many situations for this particular Netu, forcing him either to go against the Dharma or surrender and withdraw. Now let me go and superimpose the Julian Castro's natal chart with the time that he announced his intention to become the President of the United States. On the screen you see the chart. The first thing, inside the chart is the natal one, outside the circle is the transit chart. What you see is the Lagna, his natal at the time of his birth, has co-joined with the transit Sun, transit Mercury and transit Saturn at the time of the announcement. So at the time, transit Saturn and transit Sun joining there at the time of announcement indicates that as soon as the Netu announces, there will be small bumps in his road, a little bit of ups and downs in his while he is pursuing his intention to stand as a primary candidate. And once transit sun moves from there to Capricorn, it will no longer have a relationship with the transit Saturn, so the native's thoughts and dreams slowly gets stabilized. That's one reason which I think has a major impact. The second one I want to say here is the Jupiter Venus, transit Jupiter and transit Venus. They both are co-joined with Natal Rahu. So as soon as any planet that co-joins with Rahu or has a direct aspect with Rahu, some sort of uncertainty is sure to happen. And here for this particular native, Jupiter is the Lagnadhipati. So naturally something pertaining to the individual, some sort of a instability arises for this particular individual, and this was temporary because Venus moves away from it, but Jupiter is still going to be there all the way. So this Lagnadhipati transit Jupiter is going to be in conjunction with Natal Rahu for a longer period. I should say is all the way till November of 2019. So the native will be having a lot of unsurprises, unintentional situations where he has to cope up with the day-to-day issues, and that might be a big drag for this native to meet the people and tell his intention why he wants to become the next president of United States. And also the most important thing is transit Saturn residing in the first house is having a direct aspect on natal Saturn. And if you look at it, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8 and 7. 7th and 8th houses are transit, Saturn owns the Saturn. Let me check it out. 12, 11, 10, 9. Sorry. Second and third houses are owned by transit natal Saturn. So that might not be a good sign because the second house is Tanu-stanam. So Saturn residing in the 7th house and owning the second and third houses is not a good sign for the native when it comes to the financial matters, which is the core for any person to stand in the primaries and win the primaries. Let me go and see for the year 2019 starting July till December, because that's when the heat picks up. So let me go and see how the transit planets will impact the native from July till September till December of 2019. According to the 2019 sidereal ephemeris, on April 22nd, transit Saturn and transit Jupiter are co-joined in Sagittarius, which is the Lagna for this particular native. That means the Lagnadhipati is in its own house, which is Jupiter, and the second house lord and the third house lord Jupiter, Saturn, is also in the first house. So when you look at it, that's where the major problem is. Whenever Saturn and Jupiter co-joins anywhere, that's when you'll try to see some sort of a disturbances in particular in native pertaining to the house the houses that it owns. Here for this particular native, if you consider the Bihruga Sarla Paddhati, since transit Jupiter and transit Saturn are in the first house, they joined it, so they will spoil the bhava of the Mesha Rasi or Aries, which is 5th house for this particular native. 5th house stands for father, children, higher education. So let's wait and see what happens for this particular native during this period. It started somewhere in April 22nd and it goes all the way till September 1st. So that means during July and August, transit Jupiter and transit Saturn will be co-joined and will be residing in Sagittarius. On 1st September, what's going to happen is that Jupiter residing in Sagittarius will start retrograding. So that means the Jupiter is in retrograde motion is the Lagnadhipati. So when the Lagnadhipati is in retrograde motion and is co-joined with a malefic Saturn, the chances are that we might try to take one or few steps backwards, and this we don't know exactly in which perspective. When I say perspective, that means Saturn owns the second and third houses, Jupiter owns the first and fourth houses, and the 10th house owner is Mercury. And where is Mercury? Let me see, where is Mercury? 10th house, 12, 11, 10th. The 10th house owner is Venus and Mercury. So Venus transit, we have to look at where is transit Venus at the time during this period. That means in July and August, Venus moves very fast. So the decisions that NATO makes pertaining to his career is very fast, and it would be something that makes him go one or two steps backwards. And the next one is, the most important thing here is Saturn, transit Saturn is going to be in stationary mode two times. First time it was in stationary mode on 24th May, and we have no idea what exactly happened to this particular NATO in regard to his decision to move forward as a presidential candidate. But the next transit Saturn will be in stationary mode is on 6th October, and by 6th October the chances are a lot of other Democratic candidates might get a stronger decision whether some to run, and if they have they decided strongly to run, then will become a challenger for this particular NATO, or there is a possibility for some of them to withdraw. That way then this particular NATO will have a little bit space to breathe, so that as the number of competitors gets reduced. This stationary Saturn on 6th October, which is 2nd September, Jupiter will be stationary, and 6th October Saturn will be stationary. So between 2nd September and 6th October is that period that one has to keep in mind when it comes to this particular NATO's future plans. And if it is all that tells you whether the NATO is capable of moving forward, or will the NATO withdraw. On 30th or 31st of December 2019, transit Jupiter will again come and co-join transit Saturn in first house. That means until then transit Jupiter is in 12th house, where it touches the Rahu. So Rahu, as I said earlier, creates some sort of a dynamic this is the Jupiter is the first house. So Rahu creates some sort of dynamics for this particular NATO's Tanu-stanam until December, and from December onwards, when transit Jupiter comes and joins transit Saturn in the first house and having a direct aspect on the 7th house, there will be some sort of a drag. And so whatever the dynamics that Rahu dynamical or instability that Rahu has created before December 2019 will turn into some sort of a concrete outcome from December 2019 onwards. So until end of December 2019, I don't think this particular NATO will rush for a withdrawal. At the same time, I won't say that this particular NATO is sure to win the primaries, in which is supposed to happen in June 2020. So it is like a dilemma. It's not sure whether he will withdraw or not sure whether he will win. That is until the December 2019.